One of the most devastating rebellions ever waged has led to the deaths of more than 63,000 rebels. The span of the fighting spread over 89 guerrilla fronts over about 70 provinces. It is the longest-running communist insurgency in the world. China backed the group until 1976, but in 2016 assisted the government in fighting them. Many people's family members have been fighting, on both sides, for over 50 years. This is the New People's Army Rebellion. The original Communist Party of the Philippines was formed in 1930. In the years during World War II, the Hukbalahap was one of the largest resistance fighter groups against the Japanese. However, they would also fight other resistance fighters who held a more pro-US stance, as well as other communist splinter groups that they saw as competition. After the war, various groups within the Communist Party of the Philippines would push for control until the New People's Army became the official armed wing of the newly reformed Communist Party of the Philippines in 1969 under Commander Dante and Joma. Despite the long-running use of coercion, murder, extortion, and creating a culture of fear in various provinces since its formation, it wasn't until 2002 when they were finally declared a foreign terrorist organization, with its leaders being classified as persons supporting terrorism by United States agencies. Recently, support and resources for the NPA have been dwindling, yet there are still so many lessons to learn from. This insurgency hasn't been studied at any length in the US. The reality of the situation regarding the NPA is far more complicated than you would expect. Let's take a look at two important factors that made the NPA such a hard opponent to fight, and then go over what is working against them today. The most dangerous aspect of an insurgency being waged in your homeland is that the enemy looks like you, understands you, and has maybe even grown up with you. While you could argue that being ratted out for hosting a backyard barbecue in 2020 created the same kind of mistrust and paranoia, it is very different when armed men come to your village and execute people who are singled out as government workers. They come with masks and clothes that can shield their identity, but they know who does what in the neighborhood. They're from inside your town. That's the only way they could pick out their targets. Family members can also be threatened to reveal information. Of course, bribes and promises of protection could be paid as well. This still requires intimate knowledge of personal issues, work schedules, and opinions of the people inside the community. The biggest raid for resources and arms was in 1970 when a lieutenant named Victor Corpus defected from the Philippine Army to the NPA and led a raid on the Philippine Military Academy Armory over Christmas break when most cadets and staff were away. He was the designated officer of the day and walked the NPA raiding team to the area where BARs, carbines, machine guns, and loads of ammunition were stored. There's nothing external that can be used to detect this enemy. It's only when they would fly their colors in public in order to make their beliefs known that someone may have realized they'd been talking to NPA. Holidays, festivals, the who's who of the town. It's all compromised with one bad actor inside the wire. This adds to an atmosphere of fear and paranoia, never knowing who you can trust. There's something to be said about ambiguity, the feeling of an omnipresent danger, that death can come from any angle. It's an unnerving one. NPA recruiters would target the emotionally vulnerable, the poor, and the idealistic. Many of the leaders and recruiters were older, of course. They had the experience and their motives were their own. Either they believed the cause, enjoyed the rank, or benefited from the continued participation in the NPA. Something that is the same now as it always has been is the reliance of recruiting the youth. Many of these types of groups have always focused on teenage recruits, yes, even the official militaries of the world. And with a country that's mostly in the grip of poverty, this tactic was almost guaranteed to net enough numbers to cause problems. Emotional arguments swayed the young, who were recruited outside of high schools and universities through feeder youth groups. In 2005, the NPA even hosted its first openly gay marriage once they realized that the youth paid attention to this type of issue. Contrary to popular belief, being gay isn't something embraced in the Philippines until the last couple of decades.
Being gay is like way worse than being a thief or taking drugs.
Before that, lots of gays lived outside of the assistance or closeness of their families, and despite having fame or fortune, were often the butt of their own jokes.
Welcome home, Popsy!
Women were recruited by a representative that was handsome, whose promotion of equality and brotherhood in revolution would make him seem like a man in control, one with a vision. Young men always want to be the hero of the people. Targeting young people also guaranteed that in some way, the group would continue to live on as people aged into roles that they'd been groomed to take on by their handlers. Older members who survived could now lead from the back through the official Communist Party group in politics. When Ferdinand Marcos enacted martial law from 1972 to 1986, recruiting was easy due to the high number of grievances that could be tied directly to government heavy-handedness or extrajudicial killings that took place. There were areas of corruption that needed to be addressed, and the NPA knew that without any outlet to air grievances, the local populace, especially the young and the poor, were prime targets to attempt to net with messages of equality, wealth distribution, and fighting those in power that may have harmed their families. Preying on the vulnerable has always been a tactic of many groups for a reason. It works. The right messenger, at the right place, at the right time, can steer a vulnerable person to a desired outcome. The strength of the NPA recruitment drive was the emotional appeal. While it's become a kind of meme to say facts don't care about your feelings, it's foolish to ignore the ability of emotion to move people to create or destroy. So what's changing? Why does it seem like there's finally a turning point?
Rebels have only one remaining active guerrilla front. Now, Armed Forces spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar says the remaining guerrilla front of the New People's Army is in the northern part of Samar Island.
Enter social media. What helped in the past isn't helping anymore. It turns out many people, even quote-unquote anonymous rebels or terrorists, can't resist being on it. It's human nature, part of seeking validation as social creatures. Many of these people are lonely, separated from family and friends for whatever reason, and it's a hole that can be filled with instant dopamine hits from every like on Instagram. Putting your face out there destroys the invisibility factor, even more so when you get recognized by major news outlets. Let's say you're part of this violent organization and you're putting out videos to recruit people or spread your message. Chances are you'd only net the people who were going to join you regardless of social media or not. But your anonymity is destroyed. Is your phone in constant contact with the phone of a rebel commander on a consistent basis in more than one location? You're going to be tracked and assessed. Facebook is hard to leave, IG is even harder, and TikTok is near impossible for the younger ones. The bragging on YouTube or Telegram, Discord photo dumps, the digital footprint will be there. Many of these people who would have joined in the past may be angry with a corrupt official or someone in a position of authority taking advantage of the power that they have. In the modern social media sphere, punishment of bad actors can come quickly, especially when powers that be realize the growing sentiment against them now endangers their own safety. Such was the case when this off-duty police officer executed a mother and her son for the crime of setting off a noisemaker. Government grievances and abuses of power can be spread online and impact the reality on the ground faster than anything that's ever been used to spread a message from person to person. And yet, while social media has its own problem, manipulating people into behaving outlandishly, it's also key in destroying the emotional manipulation and hold over the young and impressionable. Young people are seeing other parts of the world, other ways to live and think, successes to aspire to, food to try, places to see, things to do. The effect is amplified if someone in their social circle goes to these places, tries the food, or participates in an event. For a group that promoted revolution, with a high of around 25,000 active members in the mid-1980s to an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 today, with many of those members fighting for reasons other than to promote the ideology of communism, the fact of the matter is that the NPA is losing ground to the modern world. For better or worse, the little screen that fits in your hand is more important in shaping the future than many people realize.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines says the New People's Army has no more active guerrilla units in the country.